Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about cults in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires patch 5.2. So Creative Assembly has made some major changes with respect to the cults, how they work, how you spawn them, how you can get more of them. So you now have a choice of how cults are spawned, where they're spawned. You basically have a hero for every single race that can create a cult. In the case of Khorne, it is the cultist of Khorne, makes perfect sense, so it's going to be the cultist for every single race. And cults will either have 2 or 3 slots that you can build in them, with different effects dependent on the lord you're talking about. So over here, for Scarbrand, for Khorne, we have 5 buildings in Machinations, 2 in Rituals, and 2 in Cold Magus, or 1 in Cold Magus, which does take 10 turns to actually build. So a Cold Magus is a special kind of cultist that's just basically used to create a new cult. It does take you 11 turns to get this, and you are risking discovery as well as a huge maintenance cost. Well, 300 maintenance cost is not really huge. So let's take a look at the buildings for every single race. But basically, I'm not sure if you can get Cold Magus or Magi in any other way, except getting a regular cult and then upgrading that for a Cold Magus and waiting 11 turns for that. So we get Pledge of Blood for Khorne, which gives you 100 skulls each time a battle is fought in the province, for 200% post-battle loot, reduces and increases actually enemy stats. And if Khorne corruption is 50 or more, discoverability is increased, but you'll also get income from post-battle loot plus 100%. Second one, Halls of Challenge, increases casualty replenishment, local characters. When Khorne corruption is high, skulls per turn, income, as well as unlocking recruitment for Marauders, Bloodletters, and Chaos Warriors of Khorne, but also increases discoverability. So basically, it seems like all the Machination buildings increase discoverability. The Cries of Havoc, when corruption is high, Blood Hosts, plus 1 turns to initial Bloodthirst, attrition immunity, melee attack, and upkeeps. And this is to all armies. When control is positive, -1 control in all provinces. Okay, so you don't want positive control as Khorne, I get it. For Call of Khorne, you get Khorne corruption, and when hero is present, extra Khorne corruption. Okay. And then Battle House, Khorne corruption, and if you have it very high, you get unit experience faction-wide, charge bonus faction-wide, and extra Khorne corruption in all adjacent provinces. That's the Machinations for Khorne, as much as Khorne engages in Machinations. Ritual Summoning instantly transports your faction leader to this element. Now, this is an interesting perspective for Scarbrand. I believe cults can still be spawned in high cast corruption, or specific corruption, but we will have to see on that. So Ritual Summoning, instantly transport your faction leader to this element. Cult is destroyed upon building completion, prevents other rituals from being started, and can only begin 1 cult at a time. So this is now available to all of the demonic factions. By the way, I'm not going to cover the Demon Prince. Basically, who cares? Ritual of Skulls. War will be declared on a random action. This is very much like Scarbrand. It will give you 5,000 income, 1,000 skulls, but have that downside. Takes 2 turns to build it, so you can't say you randomly build it, but you're Scarbrand. There are downsides to having random declarations of war, because one of the benefits for Scarbrand is sneaking up on settlements, raising them, and then, one of the things you can do is, just move very, very quickly, and sneak up on settlements and force march stands, switching from force march stands to movement stands, to attack stands, and then raising the settlement if you're not at war with a particular faction. Just bear that in mind. So there are downsides in having that, because it can completely ruin everything. And then, the Cult Magi settlement. So there are some nice benefits over here. I would personally go for this. I'd say it's really useful to be able to, okay, I have a hero, I just recruited him, let's get Scarbrand back here, basically. If you want to. For instance, if you're playing Scarbrand campaign, one of the things you probably would want to do is obviously go north. But there's a lot of targets available over here. Let's say you want to burst through Tvoric or do whatever, or go into Nakara, and reunite Scarbrand with this hero, you can do so with that particular cult. So, and obviously this is a huge benefit in other campaigns as well. Especially since I believe cults are still random if there's a high enough corruption. If it's not, still, lots of campaign flexibility. Might cause issues, though, for you to get to beat up Nakari, but then again, you can rely on the High Elves pretty reliably to deal with that. For Slaanesh, who is very much focused on establishing cults around the world, this may be the biggest benefit of them all. I mean, it's kind of hilarious to have Scarbrand getting money from cults, which actually does help solve one of Scarbrand's big issues, which is lack of money running the economy in the red. Well, you might still have that, but you can gain a lot of money for cults. So you do start with an actual cultist from the beginning, though you probably don't want to establish a cult right from the very start of your campaign. What I'm curious about over here, let's just, deal with this army, just auto-resolve that for battle, take that settlement. Because what I'm really curious about it is, like, what happens if I take a settlement that has a cult in it? Let's see what does happen there. Yeah, it gets removed, as expected, so I'm just going to have to restart that, go over it, just to show you the various buildings that are on offer. But it is good to know. Don't take over settlements that have a cult in them, because obviously you will lose the cult. Okay, so looking at the cult of Slaanesh, you have the same number of structures everyone does. You get devotee enticement, which gives you devotees if Slaanesh corruption is high, when enemy lord is present, when own hero is present, you get more devotees. And obviously all of these do generate discoverability over here. I'll look at what the cult Magi actually does have on offer. Just keep in mind, like, there doesn't seem to be a building right here that does reduce discoverability, but I think the cult Magi does have that. I'll probably show that with Nurgle. Charm Offensive, temporary diplomatic relations bonus with settlement owner, which we already had. Keep in mind that Slaanesh did already have, like, these factions already had some of these buildings. When corruption is high, you get more seductive influence, but cost devotees. So this is going to cost devotees. When control is 50 or more, extra seductive influence, and also generates money. Then you can reduce seduction cost by 80% in the local province. So if you're fighting a massive army and you want to get rid of some of those units, can be really, really useful. When or at least get, something like a dragon, for instance. When control is high, seduce unit budgets plus 2% to all armies. When Slaanesh corruption is 75% or more, even further. And since Slaanesh relies on building up vassals, this is really useful because you can build a lot of cults under your vassal territory. Though you're going to lose devotees, but to be honest, you can have so many freaking devotees, it's not even funny. But you are going to need a lot of Slaanesh corruption. Words of Temptation, so Slaanesh corruption, and when hero is present, plus 10 Slaanesh corruption. I wonder if your vassals would destroy your own cults. That would be a big question for Slaanesh. Population preparation, control, growth, Slaanesh corruption, income from all buildings. When Slaanesh corruption is high, get more Slaanesh corruption in adjacent provinces, more growth and control. This would be really good in your initial province, like just leave Elysia to Crix, vassalize them through it, and yeah, just build a cult there, because that growth is pretty nice. Teleportation, as you might expect. Then you have rituals. So the South Pole army will be summoned near the settlement, okay. Or you can instantly transport your faction leader. So one of these is always going to be transporting, and then finally the cult Magus building over there, which, by the way, costs 3,500 over here to build up. So that is Slaanesh. Pretty good, pretty solid, gets the job done. Okay, taking a look at Tzeentch, establishing a cult, which you can do because you do start with a cultist over here. And let's see the building that Tzeentch does have on offer. You can get Grimoires, enable lightning strikes when reinforcements are present. Your action success chance, vanguard deployment for armies and province. More Grimoires, 5% chance per turn to expand the Tzeentch cult to an adjacent region, which is very, very damn useful. When winds of magic are strong, get Grimoires, more chance to expand the cult. Intricate preparations, reduces the changing away cost, faction-wide, but you do lose 20% Grimoire and increases discoverability by quite a freaking lot. You might only want to do this with the cult Magi. Tzeentch and Corruption, plus 5, or when hero is present, plus 10, or plus 15 rather. Siege Mastery, Hero Action Success Chance, Siege Corruption. When Siege Corruption is high, character experience, Siege Corruption in adjacent provinces, and enemy hero action success chance 90%. That's pretty significant, though the AI doesn't use its heroes that often. Though I was playing a Beligar campaign where they assassinated or wounded Gotrek. It's just a flesh wound. Winds of Magic, a Ritual of Winds. Winds of Magic in this province and adjacent provinces will be pushed to Tempestuous, so you'll be gaining a lot of power for that. Money, and you name it. Instantly gain 500 Grimoires, but the cult is destroyed. And then, yeah, teleportation. Though that's gonna cost Grimoires in this particular case, if you want to teleport your faction leader. I feel like Teen should have the easiest teleportation in the game because, you know, it's kind of its thing. And then the Cult Magi settlement. I don't know how to feel about the hero action success chance. Like, yeah, changing away's cost reduction. Cooldown reduction would be pretty fucking nice, I'm not gonna lie. Like, the problem with changing ways isn't necessarily the cost, though that's also an issue. But just the cooldown on a lot of things. But yeah, hero action success chance. I mean, I guess you could make assassins far more useful, but yeah, I prefer having my limited hero roster in my armies, because that's actually more important in a lot of ways over here. You do seem to gain quite a bit of experience with your cultists when you do establish a cult, just worth saying that. Finally, for Nurgle, I did get the cult Magi, Magus, and we established one of those special cults. So it does seem like cults can no longer be generated randomly. For the game, you have to go out and do them yourself, which is a bit of a disappointment. So the cult Magi is going to give you a special structure, the cult Magi chambers, income from local settlement, income, Nurgle corruption. When Nurgle corruption is high, hero lord recruit rank, hero capacity for cultists, Nurgle corruption. That hero capacity might be more useful for certain factions than others. Just gonna point it out. Outside that, you get the building slots. Now, what's important here really, though, is that this lowers your discoverability. Keep that in mind, because that is going to be a pretty damn important benefit over there. So what do you get for Nurgle? You can either get 5 infections, or if an enemy lord is present, 20 infections. Not really worth the effort. The reason I say that is if we look at the cult, the regular cult over here, some of these things, some of these structures do cost infections, so quite a few of them. That doesn't, because obviously, spending infections to generate infection doesn't make sense. Regardless, over here, the second building, each of these is 200 infections, so this is not really worth it. You get 50 income, and if the settlement has a plague, 300 income. So 350 income, but money isn't really the problem for Nurgle. Infections are, so not really that great. Plague inducers include increased plague duration at the cost of infections, and if Nurgle corruption is very high, more plague duration, but at further cost of infections. By the way, the AI doesn't seem to care too much, or it's probably going to be difficult for the AI to discover these cults, just keep in mind. Unless settlements are being swapped around constantly, so just be aware of that. Putting this in the middle of enemy territory when there's factions fighting against each other may not necessarily be the wisest idea. Pestilence Spreader, so just a bunch of Nurgle corruption. Concoction Chamber, which gives you Nurgle corruption if it's high. Unit experience, faction-wide, research rate, Nurgle corruption, and adjacent provinces. Random Plague will be given to the settlement. Not really worth 100. Well, could be. I don't know. I mean, it depends on how the RNG is. Could be worthless, could be good. Ritual Summoning, so teleportation, and then finally a Random Plague will be given to the settlement. And of course, in the regular settlement, you do get you do get the cult Magi. But the cult will be destroyed. And given the fact that this is... and also Random Plague will be given to all adjacent settlements. So, given this is a special settlement that you can only build so many of them, yeah, I would say that's probably not worth it, really. So you do get that more powerful ability right there for the Ritual of Pestilence. But limited use. So yeah, Cold Magi do seem to be obviously worth it, but it does take quite a few turns to get that going. Though once you do build this, the building is destroyed, but once you get a certain number of cults going, like regular cults, and this might be really the strategy, you can just keep pumping on Cold Magi and just get those more powerful effects. So getting a bunch of cultists, using their ability on cooldown, especially Nurgle, who has great cultist capacity, or Slaanesh, who has great cultist capacity. It's more difficult for Khorne and Siege. That's because Siege is horribly designed, and so is Khorne. Slaanesh is much better designed, but there's issues, roster issues, replenishment issues, all that kind of stuff, right? But still, like, Slaanesh does work very well in the campaign map, and you can really see that. Nurgle, yeah. I'm disappointed in the fact that for all the things that they did change in 5.2, they didn't change the victory conditions. Like, I was like, I'm not going to fight freaking Gremgor. Like, why would I fight freaking Gremgor? Like, look at this guy. He's faction strength rank 7. And he actually lost an entire stack over here in his element when I declared war on Zarnagrunt, because Zarnagrunt went for him. So it's like, why would I give a damn to this? So I think, like, vassalization should be an option. Like, I understand, like, Nuln, which is weird, by the way, because you can vassalize Nuln, which is the stupid part, right? Over there. I do have the Unholy Alliance of Drazov and Gremgor. I mean, I burned Zarnagrunt to the ground. Does Drazov care? Not really. He'd probably be cheering for it. Well, kind of. Chaos Dwarfs kind of care about their race. Well, more so they care about Hashut, and Hashut, quote-unquote, cares about them. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Costin signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more. So overall, good changes, more interesting system, and if there's any takeaway from 5.2, it is designed to make longer campaigns better, and I think they're succeeding on that level. Like, this is turn 27. There's quite a lot of armies over here, and yes, there's a bunch of Kislevites warriors available right here. But there's also a lot more than just that. Also, let me just take a look at Drazov, what he has. So he's got a bunch of trash over there, but he does have some artillery. He does have blunderbusses at his disposal. As for Gremgor, because I was curious about this, so he has a bunch of orc boys with spears. Those are the orc boys with spears compared to these guys. It's hard to make the comparison because those guys do have the upgrades. Okay, so we can use these guys. So roughly the same unit, just, yeah, pretty much the same unit. You do get that charge reflection. You do get less melee defense on the regular orc boys, but you do more damage with them and have a higher charge bonus. So these guys are obviously meant to... Like, by the way, I gotta point this out. The difference in icon quality over here between these two is like freaking night and day. Like, you can clearly see this is an icon that was made many years ago, and this is a more modern one. Maybe there should be an overall icon update. I mean, there's mods that do it, to be sure, but it would be nice, I think. But yeah, like, looking at his armies, keep in mind he's a vassal. It's pretty solid all around. Like, yeah, it's just orc boys and spear boys and all that, but overall fairly solid. He hasn't quite gotten the level. Like, I feel when you vassalize a faction, you remove a lot of the power said faction does have. So just worth pointing out. Can I get any allies? Nope. Absolutely freaking not.
Enter then. Are you after
that is just how it's playing out over there. I guess I'll let you know how my Belegar campaign does play out over there in the long term. Costin, signing out.